Give me 1 second here and I will... Can you hear me all right? Can you write in the chat so that I can see that you can hear me? Great. Very good. I just saw that I got a message. Someone asked if there is satsang today. I will just answer that quickly. Okay. So let's just find a comfortable position wherever you are. And close your eyes. And just notice your experience. You just acknowledge everything that is in your field of consciousness. All your emotions, all the sensations that come through your senses, thoughts, whatever it is. You start by noticing that you can recognize all of it. And it doesn't matter if it feels comfortable or uncomfortable. You just notice. You just see that you can be aware of it. Maybe thoughts come about describing your state or labeling things, whatever it is. You just notice. You notice the thoughts. You notice the expressions of the body, the feelings, whatever comes. You don't have to resist anything. You just stay with whatever comes. And you invite everything. There's nothing that's wrong in your experience. Whatever comes up, you allow it. But that doesn't mean that you identify and have to deal with it. You just see it. You just listen. You just notice that it's there. You're aware of it. you don't resist anything and you don't enhance anything. You just stay. Inside you there is a deep sense of being that is already content with the moment as it is. You just stay as that. It's always there. It's the part of you that can notice that there is change. But the noticer of change is changeless. You just stay. Even if it feels a bit unusual, or you feel disoriented because very little is happening, just stay. There's no need to try to deepen your state or improve it in any way. Just stay with it as it is. Really explore this, to just stay with the moment. To let the qualities of the now really shine. So much of most people's time is taken by thinking about the future or the past. But now, we just explore this. What is the present moment? What is it that is changeful? What is it that does not change? You just notice, you check. If there is silence, you notice how you have unbecome. And if you're caught in your thoughts, then again you have become something. You have become a thought. So again notice that you can watch that thought. That there is distance between the observer and the observed. That even if you feel that this stillness feels a bit disorienting. Even if it does that, just stay. I know the thoughts are so used to going into everything in the experience and touching it and becoming. But right now in this moment, you just stay as awareness. Just watch. No need to become. There might come restlessness. Or any other form of resistance, but you just stay. You just investigate for these minutes. Deeply into your being, noticing the changeful nature of all the phenomenon, of everything, that comes through the senses, thoughts, emotions, the play of everything. And notice that you can stay aware of all of it. You don't have to touch anything. You just stay. You're just a witness. And notice that there is a sense of self. Either in attachment to something, if there is a belief that you are the body, you are the emotional content, or your thoughts. Just notice how the sense of I manifests, if that is your experience. And if that is your experience, notice that all those sensations, whatever you think that you are in that, the experience of the body, a thought, whatever it is, notice that it can be watched, that it can be observed. if you start to look for the sense of self, you will always come to the conclusion that there is no self as a phenomenon, because it can always be watched by awareness. I'm not telling you this to make you believe me. I want you to find out for yourself. Because if you do this examination of the experience and you find that there is no one, there is so much freedom in that. All the psychological heaviness comes from being someone. And whatever comes and goes cannot be you. Notice. You can open your eyes, move your body a little bit, stretch your legs if you have to. It is so common that we play with identity. And we get into spirituality and we start to create a spiritual persona with ideas how a spiritual person should be. But that is still identity. That is still a mental backpack that is heavy. If you're interested in freedom, then you have to look beyond. You cannot just play with the relative. It has its benefits to do things on a relative level and do everything as an ego, as a self-image. But it's only relevant if you believe that to be true. Then you will have a feeling that if I do this and this, I think more positively, or I can avoid negativity like this and this, or you do these small relative things. But if you stay as awareness, you don't have to play the game. You don't have to keep up appearances, you don't have to keep up a positive personality, you don't have to put on a smile. Because smiling will happen naturally. And you will watch smiling happening. Because as long as there is this sticky eye that you have to deal with, you always have the challenges of it. You have the sense that you are doing everything. And the heaviness of keeping everything up. And always haunted by this feeling that if you don't hold up your life, everything will crumble. But I have good news. You're not the one holding your life up right now. The universe is so capable of doing that. The awareness is so capable. And I know that it frightens many to just lean into the awareness. They're scared that they will just be passive or nothing will happen. But life happens naturally. To be passive in life is also resistance. When there is doing that is happening, then doing is happening. But as long as you're identified as a person, it will feel heavy. It would feel like a chore, like something that you have to do, something that is imposed on you. And without identity, even the difficult things and the hard things will feel natural. And you will see that it will be applied effort where effort is needed. But you're not a victim. It's not personal. It's not heavy. Notice. And I just want to say, if you have any questions, you're so welcome to write them in the chat, and I will answer them. I know that there is a lot of doubt about people's spiritual endeavors. If they're practicing the right thing, if it's purposeful. But it's to follow the urge of the existential drive towards truth. It's always meaningful. It will feel very challenging sometimes. And this pull can be very strange. You can call it intuition, or I usually call it the existential drive towards truth. And everything you do with that will always lead you further. So there's no pointlessness in the spiritual search. And the change that you are making in staying with the present moment, starting to notice the changeful and the unchanging, this is changing the core of your being. This is changing where you look at everything from. This is the biggest change of outlook that can happen in the human kingdom. I got a question on the other chat. I'm just gonna look for a moment. Yes, the question is about personality and how it comes into creation. I do a distinction between personality and the personal identity. I just want to clarify this because different teachers talk differently about this. And personality to me is everything that is just an expression, but it's not identity. And usually some parts of this is stuck together. So you think that some part of your identified being or your identified person is your personality. But if you start to stay as awareness, you will notice that some things will go. They will not touch you anymore. Certain fears will not click in, they will not happen, and you will be free of those. But there will still be a personality. There will still be this expression, how you talk, your accent, your gestures, whatever it is. That will still be there. It's just an expression of the consciousness. And it can look very similar to something that is identified with consciousness. But it's very different from the expressor, because there will just be a noticing of the body, of the speaker, of the happenings. So you can watch your personality, and you can watch what things will go, what thoughts and emotional content will go, and what will stay, what expressions will stay. And you will notice that the ones that stay, they are the ones that don't bother you. All other things can go, everything that has to do with identity. But most people are not so familiar with when they identify with things and what that entails, what that is. They cannot discern between being and identifying. They have a sense that everything is I. So that's why I guide in this meditation that we did in the beginning to discern between what is changeful and what is changeless. And you can still notice now, when you're listening to me, you can notice that there is listening. Maybe there are thoughts coming. Maybe you have your eyes closed, maybe you have them open, maybe you're looking at me. And all those expressions, just notice that they are happening. Notice the changefulness of everything. I got one more question. It is, when I meditate, I often notice a fear of somehow losing the ability to love and be loved if I continue the path of identification with everything I am not. Can you speak about love and enlightenment? I mean human personal love, not the non-attached universal feeling of connectedness with everyone and everything. No, I cannot speak to that, because the personal love is just confused, non-attached love. You just put your expression of love on someone. But that love is coming from you. It's not an external love. It's not coming from your lover or your family. And in meditation, you won't lose the ability to love. But your love might not be as one-dimensional as it was before. It's instead a much more universal expression. And you won't have such a strong feeling of that you have to be loved, because who are you? The one that suffers not enough love, who is that? And I'm not asking you to find an intellectual solution to this. I'm asking you to look. Who are you? When you say, I'm afraid of losing the ability to love and to be loved. And this identification, I understand that this expression can feel scary, that you disidentify with everything. But what that does is not making you distant. It's strange, but it makes you much more intimate with the experience of everything. Because when you're identified with things, you're so focused on me. There's just focus on me all the time. All the thoughts, 90% of them has to do with this me. And if you start to really disidentify with them, you will start to notice that everything is much more intimate. You can really listen to people. You can notice what is really going on because there is no personal agenda. There's no personal idea that tries to get hold of things. You will be free. And you can really listen. And then you will notice that the source of love is you. That is not personal. I understand that you have the feeling that, like maybe your children or your lover or a family member comes with this deep sense of love. But that is just that you recognize yourself in the eyes of those people. You recognize the deepest aspect of yourself in them. That's why it feels so familiar, so much like home, so warm. But it has nothing to do with the external, because there is nothing external. Everything is you. And this, in the first step in meditation, is to notice that you are not the body, that you are not the thoughts, that you are not the emotions. And the beautiful paradox of meditation is that through that you will notice that you are everything. That there is no separation. Because the personal self creates the separation. And when you're no longer believing in its ideas of I, me, mine, you will start to notice that it's universal, that it's love is everywhere, and that you are the source of love. Silence is the source of love. If you stay with the silence and you just don't do anything, don't touch any thoughts, you will overflow. You will overflow with love. Try it. You don't have to believe me, you just try it. Did I answer your question? Or was it something else with personal love that you were thinking about? the mind tries to stay relative. It's so used to presenting things and to have this feeling of identity. So when you meditate, you do what the mind is not used to. You're going somewhere where the mind cannot follow and where identity cannot follow. So it will resist. So that's why you will experience fear. This is very normal in meditation practice, that the mind rebels, because the mind has been given so much space to just identify with things and to just be caught up and to have so much influence over such a vast amount of thoughts and things in your life, that when you deprive it of that, it will resist. It's like a spoiled child that you suddenly start to make boundaries for. They won't like it. But the boundaries here are not really boundaries. It's just that you stop touching thought. Stop going with everything that says, oh, this is like da-da-da. Today is a good day. Today is a bad day. Today you're great. Today you're not enough. Whatever the mind says, you always have to believe it for it to be something. If you just stay, it has no power over you. It cannot do anything without you. You are the source to all the power. It has to tap into awareness. The egoic mind, the ego, has to present you with something, and you have to buy it for it to tap into your power. Then you can give your awareness to it, and you can believe that you are it for a while. And usually when you're in the practice of meditation, it will become very rigid when you believe in the mind. It will start to become stiff. You will start to notice this stiffness that comes with identity and the pressure that comes with it. And it will start to not feel so nice. And this is a play that can go on. That you identify for a while and you feel the stiffness of it, and then you relax in some way. Maybe you have to cry or express in some way, and then it's calm again, and then slowly the identification builds. Notice these things. Notice how they happen. And the way to notice them is to stay aware. To, in your meditation practice, if you do half an hour a day, just really sit with it. And it's not important to do super long sittings, but the most important thing is the quality of it, that you really watch. That you sit and you watch the mind. You see everything that it presents, and you stay, and whatever it's doing that day, whatever it is, you just stay. And some days we feel difficult and we feel like the thoughts are like stuck, they're glued to your forehead, and it feels like every thought is you speaking. There is so much identification, and other days it will feel like it's so easy to watch it. And the more you watch it, the easier it will be, and you will start to notice that there is always space. That the identification cannot hold, the grip of the ego's identification starts to be weak. And you can do things like question the ego when it comes and says, to whom is this happening? And you scan through your body and you notice, Maybe there is a sense of self, maybe there is nothing. And if there is a sense of self, notice that you can watch that. Some people can have a feeling that their center is here or here in the belly. You can have all these kind of emotional sensations, but notice that all of those can be watched, so they cannot be you. You can have the sense that the whole of the body is the identification. All these things can be there. And notice that they can be watched. So the question is there two eyes? Is there two identities at the same time? How can that is not possible? One has to be false because one can be observed by the other. See if you can notice. And then it's so common that we put so much effort into the relative, to solve the relative and to solve things in time. And this is one of the biggest error that we do. And we do it because we don't know ourselves. It's not it's just that we don't see it. You can observe everything in everything that can be observed can be observed. And the mind often says that there is a limitation to that, or that it's just a play. The mind loves these kind of things. But you can watch everything. You can watch your own sensation of feeling not loved, or that there is a lack of something. There is a lack of expression of love from someone else, or that you cannot express your love as you want to, whatever it is. But there is no lack. Because if you view the world as purely external, you will try to control the world around you. You will try to control other people. And if you're trying that in your life, you will notice what that creates. People don't like that. No one wants to be controlled. So as soon as they can rebel, they will rebel. Or they will get out. So many relationships are based on these kind of fears that lock them in this position for a long time. And as soon as they get some clarity or they get free from their fears, they will get out. And Osho said it very beautifully. He said, if you if you really love a flower, don't pick it, because then it will die. Just let it be. And this is the same with people. Can you really want freedom for them? Do you know what freedom is? How do you set yourself free? How do you set others free? Observe. And the universe will show you. Everything is set up for truth. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful how it's put together. If you have these things and you try to control your environment, you will time and time again see how that fails. You will suffer that again and again and again. And that is the guru is the universe there. The teaching just comes to you, shows you, especially if you notice that time and time again the same things happen. Then it's you. And you have to be humble enough to say, I don't know myself. There's ignorance somewhere that creates this behavior. So you have to be honest. And if you let go, it is so easy to love everyone, even the ones that you don't like. That is a strange one. Even the ones which behavior think is destructive and terrible and toxic, or whatever word you use. You will love them. You will sense the freedom in them as well, even though it's restrained, even though there is ignorance. There is so much, the ego creates so much of this feeling that there is not enough. There's not enough to go around. There's not enough love. There's not enough material things. There's not enough. There's not enough. What the ego is saying. But there is always enough. And this moment is exactly as it should be. It shows us exactly what we need in this moment. It expresses exactly what should be expressed. The more you look closely and observe yourself, you notice that this quality is everywhere. This deep love, this deep sense of holding, this sense of that everything is exactly as it should be. And you stop believing in guarantees. You stop believing that you have the right to a certain amount of years to live or whatever it is. And you might think that those things are things that you need. But if you give up time, the now becomes so precious. Every moment becomes so precious. Every personal interaction you have becomes so precious. Because that is all there is. When that is coming into the field of now, that's all there is. So how can it not be precious? And the spiritual path is not always easy, but it is truthful. And that makes it very challenging sometimes. And the universe has no obligation to be nice to you. It just has this obligation to be truthful. So you feel like the universe is grinding you hard. Sometimes. But it's just showing with all the things that it got, what is true and what is not. And if you feel unclear about what it is to observe, then just do it more. Do it until your eyes can slip behind everything, that there is no one behind your eyes anymore, until you're the first observer, until you're just this unchangefulness, noticing everything. I know that the mind says that you should do things in a certain way, or thinking about if you interpret me correctly. But the most important thing is to explore and to have the experience yourself. Even if you find my words trustworthy, you have to look, it has to come from you. It cannot be a belief. That won't help you, even if the words are the truth. You have to look. Really look. This is what everything in this universe is geared towards. It is geared towards awareness to find awareness. It is to the universe looks for the point where the meditator and meditation are the same. when there is no difference. I didn't understand that when I heard that. A long time ago I heard that for the first time. There's no difference between the meditator and the meditation. I couldn't grasp that. Of course there has to be between the teaching and the one practicing. There has to be a difference. But then you understand that the practice is to stay as awareness. And then you realize that you are awareness. So there is no difference between the teaching and the one practicing. Because at some point I thought, oh, it's impossible to stay as awareness all the time. But it's only the egoic mind that can make those kind of statements. Awareness is always awareness. Where can it go? How can it be lost? It cannot be lost. It's always here. It's just that you identify with something that goes somewhere in time and thinks about awareness as a thing. And you say things like, yes, sometimes I can feel the awareness and sometimes I cannot feel the awareness. This is also just a play of the mind. There is no such thing. Everything is awareness. It cannot go anywhere. It's like saying that the now has went somewhere. The now never goes anywhere. You go somewhere with your identity in time and think about the future. And then it feels like you come back into the now. When you're aware again. The awareness is just the expression of what is already here. It's not a new thing that comes up in meditation. It is noticing that you're already that. You cannot lose it. Where can it go? Where can the thing that is not moving go? It cannot go. Everything else comes and goes in awareness. Every thought, every emotion, every expression of the body, all your experiences come and go, come and go. All this play of colors and sounds and all of it comes and goes. But there is something that is the same. Even though you changed through your life, you were a child and you grew older and you grew up and you changed your ideas about things, but there is something that was always the same. The first eye. The awareness. The Atman, the Brahman, whatever you want to call it. Para-Brahman. That was its prior to everything. That which cannot be lost. Cannot be tainted, cannot be hurt. Cannot be wounded, cannot be traumatized. And I will always push for this. Push for you to look at this. I know that many people find it frustrating. They just want to do some meditation, a mantra that calms their mind. It's also nice. But at some point, you have to look at the meditator. You have to look to whom does it happen. What is changeful? What is the unchanging? These are the keys. And don't be afraid to question the egoic mind. Because most of our problems come from just listening to it and believing that some part of the egoic mind has a crucial key to telling us who we are. It does not. There will still be expression without identity. Investigate. See what it does. Because most people think that their lives are the consequences of external actions. And especially their suffering and what they are victims of, that it comes from outside. But it's all an inside job. You have to identify with it. And it's, if you observe people and you observe yourself, it's very obvious. Because if it would be a built-in thing, some people would say it's biological and it's this and that. But if it would be like that, then people would have the same. But you notice that different people identify with different things, and what is a problem for someone is not a problem for the other person. And that these identifications with things come and go. They change. What you identified that was important 10 years ago and what you identify with now is different. It's all in this changefulness. Observe. And start with yourself. And you will notice also all the things that you are, that disturbs you, that you're worried about. And especially if the actions of others bother you and a certain behavior bother you, always look about the fears that you have with that. Because as soon as you point your finger outside and you say, like, I cannot take this, or this is too much, or I don't approve of your behavior, whatever it is, then look inside. Because if you are okay with that kind of thought and you don't push it away and you can sit with it, you will also not be afraid of it arising in someone else. Otherwise, that just pokes you. This is just the universe's way of showing you where you are not free. And you will still dislike some people and you will like others, but as I said before, you will love them all. That is different. And if you start to notice your love, you will notice that it runs very deep. It runs deeper than everything. And when I talk about this love, I talk about the unconditional love that you are. Because the kind of love that many people talk about in society is this transactional love. that I love you on these conditions and you love me on these conditions, that has very little to do with love. That's like someone filling your requirements. That's just a transactional idea of love. To really love someone is to love their beingness. You don't have to approve of them. You don't have to approve of their actions. You can tell them that they're wrong. There can be all these kind of things, but there is still love. You don't approve of their lifestyle, whatever it is, but you still deeply love them. You deeply respect the beingness in them. And if they come to you, you will look at them through those eyes. And this is the difference between the absolute and the relative. The relative is this transactional world. But in the absolute, there is just love. There's just beingness. And when that touches you, there is freedom. There is so much space. And it's not heavy. And there is no one suffering the moment. There's just expression of being. We're always looking for a solution outside. Looking to solve a problem outside. Looking for someone else to change, or that we should change. Completely missing awareness itself, presence itself. This moment, the playfulness of now. So if you're curious, just look. Look in the place where no one is looking. If you look out into the world, you will just see people who point in all kinds of directions. It's this way, it's this way, it's this way. But so few point in that direction. To look deeply inside yourself. And everything is there. All the suffering springs from that, from the ignorance of not knowing yourself. That is all suffering comes from that. And when you're with the self, as it is, there is no suffering. So it's so obvious. You don't have to become anything. And the only changefulness that will happen is the natural changefulness of knowing who you are. You want to change in a certain way, so you try all these strategies and you try affirmations and you do mantras and you try in all kinds of ways. But when you embrace the now, when you embrace awareness, You will naturally change. But it's not because you're adding something. There is no quality added. It's just that you lose identity. And identity equals suffering. That's it. It's not you don't have to add anything in meditation. It feels like you're starting a practice. You sit half an hour every day. Feels like on the surface that you're doing new things, doing something more. And you hear about this letting go, and you think that you will give it a try, and you try letting go. And you feel like something is wrong, I don't really understand. How do I let go? What is this surrender that everyone talks about in meditation? Why is it not happening to me? Am I not trying hard enough to surrender? All these kind of questions can come. Surrender happens when you know yourself. And to know yourself, you have to be honest, you have to watch, you have to be as you are. You have to stop trying. That is to know yourself. And the paradox here is that you have to stop trying to know yourself. Because the one that is trying to know him or herself is in the way of that happening. So the seeker, seeking, creates an obstacle. And everyone is doing that. Some people think that when they start their practice, then their search started. But it's just that their search was in something else before. The search was more external, maybe material, or in personal development qualities to become better and better, whatever. And the search changes into a spiritual search, search for truth, search to know yourself. And now that becomes the identity. And the core of it is so simple. It's just to be as you are. There's already this quality. I cannot stress it enough. There is already this quality that's in you. Always there. Always watchful. Always still. Cannot be lost. But you can identify with all kind of feelings that says otherwise. The mind loves all these kind of things, that something is wrong, something is missing, I feel a lack of something. And I think that Buddha put it very, very well when he talked about dukkha, the suffering. The suffering of discontentment, not feeling content. This is the greatest suffering. It's not suffering a pain or a loss or a trauma or something. The greatest suffering is this. To all the time feel like it is not enough. That you are not enough, that something is wrong, something more is needed. This constant feeling of discontentment. This is the greatest suffering. And again, you don't have to believe me. Observe. Look. Look what draws you into identity time and time again. Observe all the things that are happening. And the things that you say are happening to you. All these connections. What is believed in for that connection to happen, for something to happen to you? To be a victim of something. What is the connection there? Look. And if you start to notice the seeds that are planted from the ego, you start to notice the whole game. You start to see that it is all a bargaining game. That the ego tries to present something, and the more familiar that can seem, or that you're already on board with that, and all those kind of, then it's more likely to present it. It will press those buttons. It will try to present something that you will like. Some people go really strongly into being affected by the weather, or if the mind says that this is a good or bad day, all these things. All those things are a small place with identity that you feel are they're harmless, or they feel like they're a bit helpful almost when the ego comes with them, and you have some kind of connection to them so that you buy them every time. That is the game of the ego. It's like a salesman trying to invoke its ideas on you. But it can never sell what you won't buy. So you have to buy into it every time. There has to be a transaction of energy where you say, I believe that you tell the truth about something with me when you connect with ego, and you buy into that identity, and then you have to suffer that. You have to live that. And we're just so used to it, and it's so normal in our society to do it. So people think that it's just another thought. And everyone has these kind of thoughts, and it's no big deal to believe in them. But that is the basis of all your suffering. All your problems come from identification. There's nothing beyond that. Even the physical pain of the body, if there is no identity with that pain, then it's just an expression of the body. You don't have to suffer also the suffering of an identity. And I know that the mind can say things, oh, but then I don't understand pain or blah, blah, blah. You will understand it. You will understand that it's not good for the body. And if your hand is on a hot stove, you will remove it still. But your identity when it comes to all those things, even to the bodily pain, will change. This resistance to everything, this resistance to the now, that is this idea of an identity, that creates all the problems. Because that one is, would always want all the expressions to be in time and nothing to do with what is really happening. If you're strongly identified as you know, you will worry a lot. You will think about what has happened and what will happen. And you think that you can make your life nicer through those expressions. But that is just suffering. That is just a loop of suffering. You don't know the future. You can plan whatever you like, but you don't know what will happen. And this uncertainty is key. This uncertainty is your friend, because that is truth. The real truth about the future is just this feeling of not knowing. And the expression of the past is just your relationship to it, what your identity was in that memory. And that is also not true. The only true expression is now. And it's not like a nice idea that people say that they live more in the now, and what they mean is, I only plan for the day. That has nothing to do with being in the now. I mean actually being in the now. Being in this moment that is the moment that exists. Not just playing with thoughts of future and past. And to say that the now is timeless is a very good way of expressing it. Awareness is timeless. There is only this. And the egoic mind, the ego, always try to convince you that this moment is not enough. So a great practice is to say thank you. Whatever the universe throws at you, you say thank you. Because in that expression of thank you is the sense that the moment is allowed to be as it is. So thank you is a great mantra. And it opens the door to accepting the now. And if you start doing it, maybe it would start to feel a bit, in the beginning it feels a bit fake perhaps. But the more you look into it and the more you stay with it, the more you will notice that thank you is a great expression to any situation, even the difficult ones. And if you start to see the universe as your guru, and that it shows you what you need, then you will say thank you. And if you start to bow like that, you will also notice that you are held. And a good friend of mine, when I hugged her, she said, "Oh, I like the hugs that you give so much. I feel so safe. But who is hugging you like this?" And I said to her, "Shiva is hugging me like that. Always. This is really how I feel. I feel like," and Shiva in this instance is like just the expression of the universe itself, of awareness, whatever you want to call it. And it gives this feeling of being held. That you don't have to be a doer. And with that, I don't mean that you should not do things. I just mean the identity of a doer. The expression will still be there, things will still happen. The days can still be quite busy, but there is no one that it's happening to. And this is freedom. And all these fears that come up in your practice about, if I walk this path, I'm going to be strange, or no one will understand me, or I'm leaving everyone behind. There's all these kind of fears coming with the practice. But from the experience that I have, is that none of those things that the mind had said about my practice have been true. It's much more like people will just trust you because you don't want anything from them. And even if you just identify less, people will see that. And it will be so nice to be around you because you don't want to fulfill your ego at every turn. You're not so obsessed with yourself. That's what happens with meditation. It removes the obsession of the self, of the identified self. And if there is silence in you, you can also listen. Really. If someone is talking, it's so easy to, you can hear everything that they say, of course, but you can also see what they express. Their wants or fears. It's easy. Someone can say, I don't want anything, but you notice in their energy that they want so much. This is just a siddhi of silence. This is the expression that comes naturally, the ability that comes from a silent mind. And also the peace of it, to just enjoy this moment as it is. Not being occupied with trying and wanting. Just enjoy this. Just enjoy staying as you are. It's a beautiful thing, so simple. And the contentment of the now. Such a beautiful, deep contentment. Just walking in the park. Being with this moment. Being held by the whole universe. No longer fearful. No longer trying to be happy. Just allowing every expression. Don't resist any thoughts. Don't fight with any emotion. You just are. I used to think that so much was needed, that there were many things to do or fulfill or create. Now creating can just happen. As walking happens, as cooking happens. Everything is just the expression of the now. There's no need to identify with anything. And I understand that most people find the relative reality super complex. And especially as soon as you involve time, it becomes so complex. All the ideas of what happened and what is going to happen correlate, and you have to relate to everything, and all different people that think in different ways, and it can feel so overwhelming. But to whom? Whom is all that happening? To whom? Investigate. The next time you say, it's too much, I cannot take it. Observe. Look. And look for the I in that. Look for the expression in that. And if you located an I as a phenomenon, then what is watching that? And when you watch, just see if you can stay. I understand in the beginning it would be a bit of a ping-pong match, with going with the identity, coming back, watching, going with the identity, coming back, watching. And when you start to get tired of that game, you will start to look at, but what it is that is doing that I'm going. Why am I going? Why am I going with the mind time and time again? And you start to see the ideas that the mind presents that makes you go with it. And if you don't react to that seed, you don't have to play the mind's game. You don't have to play the game of identity anymore. You can present it again and again and again, but eventually it will weaken so much it cannot sustain. Notice that you are the silence. Notice that this body, the thoughts, the emotions, all the expressions happens in this silence. Happens in awareness. And the expression of everything goes in deep sleep. And you wake up, and some mornings you feel disoriented because the egoic idea of self has not yet been activated. So this is freedom for a few seconds. Maybe you experienced this, where you don't really know where you are, or maybe even who you are. And as soon as the identity clicks in, as soon as it comes back, all the emotional content comes with it. Notice that if you wake up and you feel disoriented, there is no heaviness of emotion. And the moment when you believe in yourself and you know where you are again, the heaviness of the emotions, anxiety can come back like. There are so many signs that show that you're not your identity with your thoughts. But usually we don't notice those moments because they don't have thought content. And much of our time perception has to do with thoughts. So also if you sit in meditation and there are big gaps where you don't think, it will feel like time just flies. Because we remember time through thoughts. And most people are so used to their pace of their thoughts that they can use that to understand time. So the whole idea of time and identity is very much connected. And if you sit with your thoughts and you don't identify, there will start to be more space. There will be more moments in your life where there is no thinking. But even if that has not happened, there will still be moments where there is no thinking. Usually you will just find those moments very likable. Maybe you're watching a sunset, or you're in the forest just watching the trees, and you really enjoy the moment, but you don't really know why. This is just an expression of awareness. This is just staying with what is. Because you don't want, in that moment, you don't want anything else from this moment. And there are many times during the day when you're not thinking, but most people, the time when they observe, if you start practicing and you start to observe your mind, you will say, oh, there's so much thinking. It's worse now. I think there's more thinking than before. But that is just that your awareness of that your thinking has risen. And the mind will say that it has to, for things to happen, there has to be a thought about everything. But that is also not true. Cooking will happen even without the idea of you as a cook, or that you are making the meal. It will still happen, but the egoic mind would love to say, I cooked this meal. But meal cooking was happening is more accurate. You don't have to talk like that, but you just have to understand like that. And that's what I mean by there is no doer. Doing is happening, but there is no doer. The mind loves to take credit for things. It loves to tell stories about what you did and why you did it. Then I chose this, and then I moved here and I did this. But all those things just happen. And then the story was created to make it understandable for the egoic mind. But it's not necessary. And the stories can still be created, but as long as you don't believe that those stories talk about you. As soon as there is identification, then someone can question why you did it, and you can feel bad about it. All these things come with identification. But if you tell what's happening, but you're not invested in the story, then it doesn't matter if someone criticizes it or say, I would never have done it like that, or then it doesn't touch you. Then it cannot steal, those kind of thoughts cannot steal your mind. And it doesn't make you, it doesn't make you dull. It makes you sensitive, because you're not afraid. And you don't have to protect, and you don't have to fight, and you don't have to be ready, because there is nothing to protect. And if the things that we talk about here and that we investigate together, if that provokes you, that is a good thing. This should shake you up. And that's why I have so much respect for anyone attending satsang because there are so many things in life that are much easier than attending satsang. Staying in your own truth and investigating this is a beautiful thing, but it's not the easiest thing you can do. It is the beginning of self-love. And self-love could also be just called love. And that is just truly accepting who you are in this moment. Not the identity of it, just the expression of it. The awareness in this moment. And the acknowledgement of everything. All your expressions. Whatever comes into your field of consciousness. See if you can just be with it. No more fighting, no more pushing away. We have only a few minutes left, so if you have a question, please write it in the chat and I will answer it. And I will try to do this once a month. So there's 4 weeks until next time. And self-love, and when you talk about the expression, and talk about accepting the now, doesn't mean to accept the content. I just want to make this clear because this is a very common confusion. It doesn't mean that you have to believe every thought. That is identification, is that you see every thought. Can you distinguish between those things? Can you see the difference between observing and identifying? And if you cannot, then you observe as much as you can, and then you see. I got a question if this is recorded, and yes, this will be available on this channel. It usually takes a day before I can make it available, so probably tomorrow sometime, tomorrow evening. this will be available. And if you want to support these satsangs, you can go to atmananda.org, and there's a donation button if you want to give a donation. And I just want to say that it's all right to feel confused about what we're talking about here. It's actually part of what will happen. I remember myself when I went to satsang the first time, I was so frustrated that I didn't understand everything, but I didn't realize that that is a beautiful part of satsang. It takes you to the edge of your understanding. And if you know your edge of your understanding can expand so much easier if you time and time again listen to satsang and come to the edge of your understanding. So if you felt today, okay, I can follow Marcus until this point and then it feels like I'm lost, that is fine. That is what's supposed to happen. And just allow all the expressions to happen. Just relax into the practice. The more you force it, the more the egoic mind has something to hold on to. Just be. Just stay and be. It's much more a question of stop fiddling with things than to try, like many people try to find a new path all the time or a new way forward. It's not so vital. It's if you can relax into this moment and stay with it as it is, that is the greatest thing. But if you feel like you have to force and try, do that until you get frustrated and then change. I know for some people you cannot just relax into it. They have to force until they hit the wall and then it will stop. That is also fine. Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your presence. Thank you. I would like to thank my teachers, Swami Shashwat Ji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions, for your curiosity. Thank you. Thank you. And as I said, it will probably be up tomorrow if you want to look at it again. And I see you soon. Take care. Love you all. Love you.